You're listening to The Scrimmage with Daniel Hargrove and Justin Domashevitz.
Ooh, wow! I'm alive!
You made it here.
I'm excited that I'm alive.
It's a good start.
I almost died. There were power lines knocked down in the middle of the road at the intersection of West Satsip and Middle Satsip. It is Middle Satsip, right? Is that Middle Satsip the road that you turn on to come out here? The first one? Yeah, so intersection of West Satsip, Middle Satsip. And I came flying around the corner. In case any police officer are listening, I was totally going the speed limit.
1 mile under, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And had to slam on my brakes because there were literally power lines in my eye level in the road.
That sounds scary.
Terrifying. And seeing as I'm pretty sure I alerted the PUD that had happened, I'm pretty sure they were live still. So, freaked me out. I'm not sure because I have rubber tires.
There's also a lot of metal in your car.
I know.
You work for a PUD now. You're supposed to be telling us.
I'm going to go learn that. Like, on Tuesday, I'm going to go back to work, and I'm going to find an engineer and be like, hey, had I run into these power lines, because I thought I heard, like, some nick my car roof.
Yeah.
Had I hit them, would I have, like, fried my electronics in my car, or do the rubber wheels, like, protect that somehow?
The engineer will probably say, I don't know, your tires are made out of rubber, but your car has a lot of metal.
Right? That's what I was thinking.
I do remember from the fair a few years ago that you should stay in your car and not try to get out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if for some reason that you have to get out of your car,
Yeah.
avoid touching any metal.
Oh, yeah.
But also don't put both feet on the ground at the same time. Because the difference in power, the power difference between the in the ground, a step apart, could be enough to kill you.
Dang.
So
That sounds made up.
Jump like
Don't listen to Justin. I don't care if that sounds made up. I'd rather have you survive.
I'm putting 2 feet and a hand on the ground.
So when you're running away, if you must run away, which you shouldn't,
Yeah.
don't put both feet on the ground.
I was
at
a
the same
little
time.
worried.
Well, that wouldn't be a problem for me, because when I run, I'm so fast my feet don't touch the ground.
Sure.
I'm a little. I didn't know what to do, but like the person
Sean
who was
says
in the
that your
accident,
car is completely grounded. It is a totally safe space if hit by lightning.
hit by
I
lightning.
feel like
but
that
what if power
depends on
lines
if
are
you're
resting on it?
touching your radio or not.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
I feel like Sean would know.
Yeah.
Probably.
And that applies to most things in life.
Exactly.
When there's something I don't know, often I ask Andrew. And if he doesn't know, I go to Sean.
Right.
Anyway, this is The Scrimmage.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. I'm Justin Domashevitz, my co-host Daniel Hargrove, and our trusty producer Andrew Gross here with us as well. We got a lot of great stuff to talk about today besides power lines and car accidents. There's some Seahawks stuff to talk about, some Mariners stuff to talk about, but more importantly and more fun than all of that, opening weekend of high school football, a little bit of soccer as well. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some golf.
Must we?
Must we? I don't know. But right before we started off with the 2-minute drill, this is an actual old electricity, like back in the 40s. Have you seen this? Yeah, this was like an ad campaign back in the 40s.
Can you save that photo so we can share it to our socials?
I'll share it on our socials. This was an old-timey, like, hey kids, don't mess with electricity. And it's this creepy looking electric graphic guy with like a switchblade about to stab somebody. It's so creepy.
It's totally normal.
Anyway, let's start with the 2-minute drill.
Let's go, huddle up. Gotta hurry. Hey, 2-minute situation, 44 seconds, hand the ball to ref. Gonna do it right. 3 jet Buckeye on 1.
The 2-minute drill starts now.
We really need to change that audio.
I like it. I miss Russ.
Speaking of Russ, we really need to change that audio. Anyway, the Denver Broncos signed former Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson to a 5-year extension worth $245 million, including $165 million in guarantees. If Wilson plays out the life of this deal in Denver, he'll be a Bronco until he's 40. Justin, is this a good deal for the Broncos?
Well, what it does for the Broncos in the short term is actually give them a little bit of cap relief, which is funny because the first 2 years of this deal, Russ's cap hit is only $17 million and then $22 million. So it gives them a little bit of flexibility to not only sign some guys that are already on their roster that they want to keep, but also get some guys in as free agents. So yeah, it helps them in the short term. When you get to 2026, it's a $58.4 million cap hit. So I'm going to assume before they get into the last 3 years of this deal, they're probably going to be trying to renegotiate something, because ultimately all they did was say, hey, let's win in the next 2 years and kick the can down the road, and we'll worry about 37-year-old Russ when we get there. Seattle Mariners prospect Jared Kelenic removed all traces of the team from his Instagram last week. The outfielder has spent much of the season in the minor leagues and was not brought back to the major league club when the roster expanded in September. Daniel, does this mean anything?
This means that a 23-year-old guy was grumpy and emotional and upset about not getting called up to the Mariners, even though, let's face it, Taylor Trammell is the one who has produced at a higher level this year. Kelenic is upset, emotional, and he has zero power in this situation, so it's not like he's a star quarterback like Kyler Murray that can try and demand a trade or force his way out. He
Smell
is
you later.
completely under team control and has nothing he can do about it. It kind of sucks, but that's the way it is. Going into Sunday's contest with the Cleveland Guardians, the Seattle Mariners were the hottest team in the American League, having won 6 games in a row and 8 of their last 9. Justin, with the M's currently 17 games over 500 and sitting in a good position for a wild card playoff spot. Man, you really... Sorry.
What?
I mean, after last week where it was one-word questions, I mean, this is a hefty one. Do you feel like a fool for doubting them at the start of the year?
I resent this question. This is a ridiculous thing for you to be asking me.
Yeah.
At very least, I was cautiously optimistic about the
Sure.
Mariners. I remember being all over this team with optimism from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Spring training and before.
You told Andrew and I, don't do this to yourselves. Stop getting excited.
I don't remember any of that.
Oh, sorry.
There's one more question.
I know.
The Seahawks signed former Oregon State Beavers quarterback Sean Mannion to their practice squad on Thursday. Daniel, how long will it take for Mannion to earn the starting spot over Geno Smith and Drew Lock?
To earn the starting spot yesterday. To actually have Pete Carroll recognize that and put him in at the starter, never. Because Pete Carroll... Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's a good spot.
What if they get Brandon Cooks in a trade? Put the old squad back together from the old Beaver days?
Dude.
I have Brandon Cooks in fantasy. I would honestly rather not see him playing for the Seahawks right now.
Who's he playing? Is he still at Houston?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he
He's
doesn't have a
got,
quarterback there either.
Mills.
Davis Mills, bro.
Who?
Davis Mills is
He's
is
worse
for
than
real.
Geno Smith.
Davis Mills is for real. For the purposes of this fantasy season.
I didn't know that there was somebody with a worse quarterback situation than the Seahawks, but you proved me wrong. It's the Houston Texans. That's miserable.
It's funny because
Wow.
you say that's a worse quarterback situation. Davis Mills was not terrible last year.
Geno
I'd
Smith
say-
won a game.
I'd say they're in
He's
a very...
experienced. He knows the offense. Why don't you just listen to the talking heads at 710 who say that Geno's actually pretty good?
I think they're in a very similar quarterback
I'm not sure
situation.
who at 710 has said that.
Well, they're saying that he knows the offense.
And
He's very
he's-
comfortable in the situation. He won a game last year. Actually played pretty well last year.
He won a game last year.
Yeah.
I think every time they're saying that, they're explaining why
he's better
what
than Drew Lock.
Yes, exactly. Like it's like why would Pete choose him over Drew Lock? Well,
Yeah.
there are these things.
Okay, you're right. I gotta say, I was thinking about it on my way here actually, because I figured you guys would ask me. You know, Sean Mannion's a former Beaver. What is the
I mean,
difference?
He's a Beaver, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
Beaver for life.
By the way, I'm pretty sure I learned this at some point before, but I was reminded after seeing a beaver at an exhibit at Northwest Trek yesterday, the beavers have bright orange teeth. So it totally makes sense that their colors are orange and black. What doesn't make sense is that the beaver's logo has white teeth. They're supposed to have orange teeth. Anyway.
Have they ever seen a beaver?
That beaver
Right?
in your video, though, that was pretty cool. It like did a little
So
show
cool.
for you.
Dude, it was our favorite part of the exhibit. It
Yeah.
literally was like playing hide and seek
Yeah,
with us.
It was interacting with you.
And it did that for like 10 minutes, so much that other people were like, hey, come look at this beaver. It's awesome. It's like playing with us.
It sensed that you guys were beaver fans.
It did. And we'll post some pictures probably onto our social media because
Okay.
I looked manic when
You
the
really
beaver
did.
like
You were so psyched.
I was so psyched. And then I was even more psyched when Anchor started laughing at the beaver, like, because he was super excited that the beaver was playing with us. I was like, it's already hooked. Well, I've got another beaver fan. It's already set in stone.
That
right here.
beaver that was at Northwest Trek in the exhibit didn't know that you killed its grandfather.
Shut up. I was really hoping you would bring that up.
For context, Daniel ran over a beaver once in his car.
It was a hit and run.
It was hit and run.
It was way bigger than this one, too, by the way.
Yeah, beavers are big, man.
Yeah. Anyway, so Sean Mannion, Geno Smith, what's the difference? They're both career backups. The only difference that I could think of was Geno Smith had his shot
Yeah.
at the beginning of his career
You can
and
see
failed.
from a business standpoint.
You can see from a business
I'm
standpoint.
sorry, ESPN tabs are playing automatic
Yep,
videos.
auto
Oh,
videos.
I hate
I am
those autoplay videos
It's the
so
worst.
much.
I was trying to look up the stats for the two.
but
right?
you can tell from a business standpoint.
Yeah, that they're pretty much, their careers have been fairly similar, except for Geno Smith got his shot and
Yeah.
failed, and Sean Mannion never got his shot.
I mean, he played mop-up duty, right? Like he's taken some snaps.
Yeah. He looked really good in the preseason for the Rams. So much so that I thought he had a shot at stealing the job from Goff. Mm-hmm. What's Goff's first name?
Jared.
Jared. Yeah. I thought he was going to steal the job from Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. But then they didn't go that way. And I think that might have been... Did they trade him to Minnesota? I can't remember. Anyway. So that's what I want to see. Like, that's the only difference. They're career backups. They both know the offense okay because Mannion was not only here for a bit last year in Seattle, but he also was with their offensive coordinator in LA before that. So he understands the offense. He's a career backup. The differences are
You can see from a business
you
standpoint.
can see from a business standpoint that he is way better.
That was another one.
Jones. He's so much, in my mind, he's so much more talented, obviously. He's got a cannon for an arm. And he's never gotten his shot to prove himself or not. Give
Agreed.
him his freaking shot.
And you remember, if we go back to the Sean Mannion Oregon State Beavers college era,
Yeah.
that was a really fun era of Beavers football.
It was.
They were really good, as I already mentioned. That's Brandon Cooks was there, and he was, for my money, top 2 or 3 receivers in the country. He was incredible.
Yep.
And I remember discussing that at the time. Like, what is it about Sean Mannion that the scouts don't like? Like, he has the size. He seems to make smart decisions. He passes well from the pocket. He can make all the throws. It's one of those cases where I never fully understood why the guy didn't get a chance like Geno Smith did.
Exactly. I mean, he was drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah. I think Geno was a 2nd round pick, so that's not too
Yeah.
far off. really.
Career, he has a 2% better or 2.1% better completion rating or completion percentage.
That's all the proof you need.
But
Yeah.
he does have.
No,
a
you could stop if there's a
a
but. You
sig-
just stop.
a
It's fine.
significantly worse quarterback QBR.
Well, considering that he's only played
16 games. Started 16 games, I believe.
He started 16
Mannion
games.
14 games.
No,
Really?
There's no way
it says
Mannion.
played. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
so he's played 14 games.
I mean, the fact that he has 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions showed that he has not actually played that much. Like, he has 573 total passing yards.
At that point, the stats are almost meaningless.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
he
Did you say
really
one-
has not
one,
had a shot.
One touchdown, 3 picks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, but it's in, like, mop-up games. You know? It's like the end of the games. Like, why not just chuck it up there? Especially if you're used to having Brandon Cooks in college who would just catch it no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope he gets his shot. He's definitely better than Drew Lock, in my opinion. No, he's better than both of them. Just give him his shot. That's all I want to see. Just one shot.
The problem is he's gonna. I can't argue with what you're saying, but I don't think that being better. I think it's gonna take somebody being significantly better.
And exactly, you asked me when he was going to earn the job. I said yesterday. When is he going to get a shot? Probably never, because Pete's a moron.
Well,
Well, every decision that Pete Carroll has made since drafting Russell Wilson has been garbage.
Pretty bad. Or he stumbled
That's
into it.
what you said last
Or he stumbled into it. Yeah. The problem is it's not like Mannion's young either. He's 30 years old.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that concludes our Sean Mannion segment of the show, and I think
I was
leads...
so excited when he got picked up. I was like, I get to talk about Sean Mannion.
Yeah, I'm getting emotional, not going to lie.
Next week, continuing our series of Oregon State backup quarterbacks, we'll talk about Jake Luton.
Yes.
But for now, let's go into my favorite part of the show.
Yes, Sean, we would love you to dig up Justin's comments on his Mariners posts.
That's
on
not...
Facebook.
You don't need to do that. It's not...
Please send us all of those.
you're not going to find anything, but don't bother. It's no big deal.
All right.
My
Justin's favorite part of the show.
My favorite part of the show. Serving questions up on a silver platter where the points are made up and the rules don't matter. Time for Stump Daniel. Well, today, and if you're watching on the YouTube stream, I don't know if you can see it, I'm wearing a Mariners jersey and a Rainier's hat. And that was as an illustration of how I've
We're all wearing
been
sports stuff.
all on board with this Mariners team since opening day.
We have okay.
So in
Sure. Okay.
in
I just got to point out that not only because I feel like I'm usually the oddball out, not wearing sports stuff randomly, but I got my Beaver shirt on.
Yeah.
Andrew's got a Seattle Mariners shirt and hat on.
Vive la France.
You got a Mariners and a Rainiers hat.
Yeah.
And Hannah has a Cougars sweatshirt and a Mariners hat. Like, we are killing it today.
We did it.
We're repping.
I almost wore my Avatar The Last Airbender shirt, but as I was walking out the door, I was like, I should put on my Ichiro jersey.
Yeah, and you wore that shirt last week, so I would have assumed that you just have never taken it off.
I wear it a lot.
It's a good shirt.
Yeah. Anyway, Daniel, I have 2 questions for you. And as I mentioned, since I've been all over the success of this team since opening day, I have a
Yeah.
couple of opening day related questions for you.
Okay.
Can people on the feed hear the rooster? That sounds so cool. I hope they
does.
can. It sounds like we did it on purpose almost.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel. And actually, I'll just say before I ask this question,
Okay.
the reason I wanted to ask this question is because I feel like I might owe Jerry DiPoto an apology.
What?
And you can tell me whether I do or not.
Which of you was harder on Jerry DiPoto?
I was pretty hard on
I
him.
feel like Daniel
Mine-
was...
I called him a lying liar who lies about things.
My specific
Which is a good
issue with
callback.
Jerry DiPoto was very Seager related.
Yes.
And I kept saying things like, if only they had a guy who could hit a few dingers and be productive at the plate playing third base. Well, I got to give Jerry a little credit because he did find that. A guy who hits around the same average as Seager, but hits more home runs and drives in at least just as many runs. And Eugenio Suarez, who I like and has actually been a good defensive player as well. With that inspiration, I'm not going to apologize to Jerry because he is a liar. But, Daniel, prior to 2022, how many consecutive seasons had Kyle Seager been the M's opening day starter at third base?
How many consecutive seasons?
Yes.
Let's see. How long was his career? I'm going to say 10.
Ooh, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. The correct answer is 2.
What?
Ryan Healy started opening day in 2019 at third base because Kyle Seager tore a tendon in his left hand during spring training, which required surgery, and he missed the start of the season.
Sorry. Oh, I just bumped everything. Cameras be dinged.
Mm-hmm.
What was the question?
How many consecutive seasons had Kyle Seager been the M's opening day starter at third base?
Not like...
How many total, but how many consecutive?
I know, but I was thinking like, what was his streak? So before that, he had to have been the M's opening day starter for a long time. Mm-hmm. But you were saying his most recent streak.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Prior to 2022,
I still
how
would
many
have
consecutive
I
seasons?
still would have messed that up, but I was assuming that you meant what was his longest streak as the Mariners opening day starting third baseman.
You would have also been wrong.
Yes.
He started as the third baseman on opening day in 2013, and then for 6 seasons until 2018.
Gotcha.
Then 2019, he missed opening day, and then he had 2 seasons after that.
Okay.
So you're 0 for 1.
That's not a good start. Bad
It's only
start.
one more question,
Bad job by me. Oh, no.
but it's a 4-part answer. You're going to get some points here.
Okay.
Since 2007, only 4 different pitchers have started opening day on the mound for the M's. Who are they?
Felix Hernandez.
That is correct.
And this is since 2007?
Yep. I mean, this year's
Cliff
opening day
Lee.
starter is also part of the answer.
Yeah. Cliff Lee.
Sorry, that is not correct.
Oh, crap. Marco Gonzalez.
That's correct. So you got 2 of them.
And
You still haven't gotten this year's opening day
Robbie
starter.
Ray.
Robbie Ray is correct. So
Do
you
I
got
get a
3.
guess? Can I get a bonus guess at
Sure.
that last one?
Yeah. So you got Robbie Ray. He started this year. Marco started the 3 years prior to Robbie Ray.
Felix Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't Cliff Lee.
No.
Who?
Cliff Lee was actually never the opening day starter.
As I assumed that once you said that he,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because he came in the midst of Felix.
Right.
So I'm
Would
not
it
sure-
surprise you to know that this person started an opening day after Felix started his first opening day in 2007?
James Paxton.
Ooh, I'm sorry. That was a good guess, but it is not correct.
Dang it. Okay. Who is it?
2008, Eric Bedard.
Eric Bedard.
The guy the Mariners traded away Adam Jones to get.
Who then didn't want to play.
Don't
So it
like
was
that guy.
Robbie Ray this season. The 3 previous seasons, it was Marco Gonzalez. And prior to that, it was 2009 to 2019, it was Felix Hernandez every year.
Yeah.
Also in 2007, it was Felix Hernandez. But in 2008, it was Eric Bedard.
For some reason, I thought Cliff Lee, like they gave him the nod, but that was a stupid guess.
You
Like,
got 3 points out of 5.
Okay. But you
So
said
you-
that was. Oh, that was
It's a 4-part answer.
Gotcha,
You got
yeah.
3 of them.
Cool.
Turns out pretty good.
I'm okay with that.
Not quite beef zone. You were in the beef zone at Northwest Trek. though.
Yeah. There we go. But
So
not
you
the,
got some Coug zone. I
not the
think, going on.
Corvallis beef zone.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, we do have some Mariners and some Seahawks to talk about.
Yeah. I
Probably.
I want to talk about
But
Ty France for a second.
Before we do that,
Okay.
let's take a quick commercial break.
I'm not reading the show sheet.
Do you have a legal situation and need someone on your side? Let the law office of Jeffrey A. Damashevitz be your advocate. If you've been the victim of medical malpractice, suffered a personal injury, or need representation with real estate law, small business law, or estate planning, let Jeff Damashevitz put his 29 years of experience to work for you. Call Jeff Damashevitz today at 360-612-3991 or visit damashevitzlaw.com. That's DAMASIEWICZLAW.com.
Thank you again to our sponsors, Only Penn Real Estate and the law office of Jeffrey A. Damashevitz.
What's the A stand for?
I don't know. Is there relation?
No.
Ah.
I was looking at Twitter on my phone. Sorry. I'm back now.
Okay. So I wanted to start off the Mariners conversation with Ty France because as we were recording last week, I was saying that they needed to sit down Ty France for 10 days, and Andrew said
Yeah, that's right.
because the game was currently
I
going
had
on.
been agreeing with you the day previously when we were chatting about it.
Yes.
But that day, the game had just ended, and I
And
was like,
he had 3 exit velocities over 100 miles per hour, including 2 hits and 1 home run. And I was like, I doubled down. I was like, any good hitter can run into a couple and get lucky, but he's still injured. Yeah, so he went 2 for 3 that day on Sunday. Then he went 3 for 4 on Tuesday, 1 for 4 on Wednesday, and then 2 for 4 on Thursday, then 1 for 4 on Friday, and then 1 for 5 yesterday. And if I'm not mistaken, he already has an RBI and a hit today in the delayed game that's currently going on.
And yesterday, one of his outs, I didn't watch the whole game, but I watched part of it. And yesterday on Saturday, one of his outs was a line drive that he absolutely smoked right at a fielder.
Yeah. So let's just say that I was wrong. I'm going to say
that
that I
like?
was right before because they should have sat him down earlier.
Maybe.
But he seems to be fine now. No, I was wrong. He has absolutely been on a tear. Let's see, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hits in that stretch before today. He's like something like 10 for 24 with like a bunch of dingers.
Can confirm he has 1 hit and 1 RBI in the delayed game today.
Right. And Julio Rodriguez also has a dinger today. Mm-hmm. So.
And scored 2 runs.
Yep. It's almost like those are the 2 All-Stars. And they're both playing like it. So I'm just going to say I was wrong.
We appreciate that.
Unlike Salk, who always says that he'll say, like, during an argument, he'll be like, trust me, I'll be in line. I'll say I was wrong. Never does. But he'll tell you that if he's wrong, he'll tell you he was wrong. But he never does.
He has apologized for being too strong anti-Seager. Because he was very anti-Seager.
So anti-Seager.
That was really...
It might be because their show ratings started to take a hit.
I think it was it was so much more of a... My feeling, and at that time I was actually listening a lot. I don't listen to him anymore because I feel annoyed every time I do. Mm-hmm. But I felt like that was so much more of a pro-management take than an anti-Seager take.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it probably came across to some people as he was attacking Seager, but all he was really trying to do was protect his corporate relationships with Scott Service and Jerry DiPoto.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And it felt transparent to me. Like, hey, I have these guys that are on my show weekly. Who am I going to roast? Am I going to roast them or this player who's probably gone in a few months? He chose to go after Seager.
It's a business decision.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look
made
at
a
it,
business
you look at it business-wise.
It just depends on if you consider yourself a journalist or not. Like, does Mike Salk consider himself to be a journalist in the radio game? He writes, he reports, right?
Yeah.
So if he
I
considers himself to be a journalist, then he should hold himself to a standard of integrity, which I think he's failed.
That if you asked him, he would say that he's in entertainment. Like, he tends to be willing to take those, which is probably why you're annoyed by him more. I think that's what annoys people about him.
Yeah.
Is that he tends to be willing to take, like, strong opinions for the sake of creating controversy on the show.
That's a real Skip Bayless vibe that I'm not with.
Yeah. I can understand why not.
I get really excited when Lefko is in for Salk. Like, that makes me happy because he's like super chill and definitely not as polished, but is kind of a fun guy to listen
Oh
to.
boy, actually, speaking of not as polished, if I ever listen to a show, it's Stacy and Bump.
Yeah,
or Bump and Stacy.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Bump and Stacy.
I love Stacy, and I think she does a really good job of
Stacey's
steering the
amazing.
ship. There was like a stretch of a couple of days that Stacy was gone, and it was bumping somebody else. Ooh, buddy, that was rough.
It was bumping their producer, wasn't it?
I don't know enough of the people to know, but I know that it was Bump that was kind of running the show.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of
Sean.
okay.
Sean was
So-
correct and called Eric Bedard, and he also says there's no way Salt considers himself a journalist.
Makes sense.
I tend to agree with that.
I'm glad that that's at least the case. I still don't like Salk. I'll still listen.
I just it's hard for somebody who seems to take himself so seriously.
Yeah. I mean, seriously enough that we've heard, I mean, when the whole ship blew up over there and there's all the layoffs and Jim Moore, like, a lot came out.
Yeah.
A lot came out.
A lot of stuff.
I wouldn't want to work with him. That's
no.
for sure.
I gotta say, I don't know what the alternative is for me driving in the morning. Like, what am I gonna do to hear about the game the previous night? 'Cause I've tried KJR.
Is that still a thing? I haven't
don't-
listened.
I don't
Ever
even
since they
know.
don't have an FM
They
station
are.
here anymore, I
They've
don't
got-
listen to it.
They
Yeah.
have. I just blanked out. on
They
his
used to
name.
have Bucky Jacobson. Do they still have Bucky
Cougs Go.
Jacobson?
The Coug older guy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I just can't
Jim.
remember his name. Jim
Moore.
Butts.
Jim Moore.
Wait,
Butts.
Jim Moore's with KJR
Jim
now?
Moore is with KJR now, yeah. And they
Nice.
also have.
Maybe I'll check that out.
They have.
Because I want...
He's probably not working mornings.
No.
Just as a guess.
No, that's the problem. See, I want somebody who I want to listen to who's talking sports in the morning so I can
about
get...
Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
sports,
so I can get that, like, okay, next day recap. What'd the Mariners do last night? What all happened?
And you've got the commute for it now.
I do.
And
oh
it
my
is
gosh,
hard.
do I.
Like, since I'm a podcast listener and I don't listen to a lot of live radio, there are times where things will happen and I'll be looking like, all right, well, what podcast can I find that will talk about this thing that happened an hour ago?
Yeah.
Or last night. And there's not a ton. So,
Yeah.
that's a struggle.
It
It's
is.
a daily struggle we all go through.
It's real. That's
You want
why
information,
radio.
where do you get it?
That's why radio should not die. I know it's dying, but it cannot ever completely die because there is that service that you can't get with a podcast that you can get with radio.
There's a lot of reasons why radio can't die. That's one of them.
Well, so you're saying that, and I agree with everything that you said, except that I listen to live streaming, quote, radio, unquote, every day. I haven't listened outside of when
So you're
we're in
saying-
a car that my phone doesn't connect to. I never listen to the actual radio.
I get what you're saying.
Radio waves going into a radio receiver is so close to completely dead.
The only reason why I don't think it will be ever is because of emergency situations when all of a sudden phone lines are knocked out, but you have radio waves and you have local radio.
I agree with you.
If local radio stations die, then the need for radio waves entirely will die. But as long as you have a station here in Grace Harbor who can communicate, if phone lines are knocked out, then you will need them for emergencies.
I think at the point, and journalism as a whole is dying. And that really bothers me because I think people will realize, but people in just the general public don't think about checks and balances and what's important about journalism and why you need the media.
Yeah.
Since big figures love to blame the media for everything, the media becomes a villain. And many media members have embraced the villain role and become villains. But like, Daniel, you used to work at KXRO. I listen to KXRO on my way to work and home from work every day because I feel like what you guys did there and what some people are still doing is valuable and they do a good job. And it's important to have information to hold people that are actually in power locally accountable for things that they do and say.
Exactly.
And when that's gone, you will have people with power and no accountability. And it's going to be a mess.
Exactly.
So please support your local radio.
Exactly. And that's what you're seeing nationally.
Or else.
Because nationally, they just pick sides. So they're not keeping anybody accountable. They're just picking who they like and going with it.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. And yes, you're right. Kyle is still doing an amazing job. Yeah. He's doing the job of at least two people by himself.
And my point is just that the radio stations need to be focusing on their digital presence. Because if you're streaming live, I can listen to you.
And
if you're not, it's so much harder.
Yeah, and that's why, gosh, okay, I know we're getting off on a bit of a tangent here.
This is so much more fun to me than talking about whatever's going on with the Seahawks.
So, exactly, me too. So we had this like new boss come in at the radio station like right before I left. And by the way, I'm still doing sports games whenever I can.
You did great, but I enjoyed listening to the Aberdeen.
It was so much fun.
Oakham.
It was so much fun. Besides that, but this lady came in and she was like, you really got to focus on your digital presence and all this. And I'm like, yeah, great. You haven't looked at ours. Because we are really good. And our social media presence is massive when you look at the size of the county. Mm-hmm. Like, it is huge. And it's I want to say, if not the biggest, the second largest Facebook follow number in the county. Like, it is massive. And we
stream about the KWOK page or the KXRO page?
Okay. KXRO page. And
tons of comments on your guys' stories.
And I'm just like, oh, great. You haven't actually looked us at all. You're just assuming you're a tiny little market. You need to do more social media. And I'm like, no. Both of the people who we have running our Facebook page consult to other people on how to run Facebook pages and social media. Like, we know what we're doing. Thank you for looking. And yes, Andrew, you're absolutely right. Digital presence is huge. And that's why I'm like, you still need that.
Yes.
Like, emergency situations is what that radio waves thing is for. Because you could listen if you wanted. You could listen via stream.
I do.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And also, I would add about KXRO, not that KXRO is like a sponsor of our show or anything.
That'd be cool.
If you're looking for like
they had their chance.
Factual, to the point, important local news that's not watered down, that has no paywall.
Yeah.
The KXRO Facebook page pretty much gives you everything you actually need.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sticking to
I would
it.
have to go on Facebook.
So we already talked about Mariners.
After I say digital presence is so
You
important.
can also find Mariners games at KXRO.
There's the very
You can't stream them there, though.
That's true. Unless we mess up.
Come on, KXRO, do better.
Do worse.
It's do worse.
The next thing,
Forget to blackout.
Yeah.
the next thing on the show sheet is Seahawks.
No. Okay, so next after that.
The biggest news that affects people around here was the news that happened after last week's show. Joel DeBlanco did not make the final 53-man roster cut on Tuesday.
Yep.
And in addition to that, he did not, even though he wasn't one of the first 15 players cut, he didn't get a practice squad invite, which kind of stinks.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that he'll be able to find some other place to jump on a practice squad, whether it happens before week 1, I don't know, or maybe it happens throughout the course of the season. Somebody gets hurt, somebody gets cut, and he'd have an opportunity to jump on a practice squad somewhere, because he did have an opportunity in the preseason.
Yep.
Like, he was given chances. The Seahawks gave him lots of snaps to get out there and put good things on film.
Absolutely. And I know there are some downsides, and I think a lot of people like to focus on those more than the upsides. But there's a lot of upsides.
Mike Sulk.
There was a lot of... Oh, gosh. He blew it completely when in hit... Yeah, anyway. But there was a lot of good things to look at, too. I mean, what Andrew, you said he had the second most tackles in the whole NFL
That's
in the
what I
preseason.
heard, yes.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
And he had,
He had
12
20
I heard it from
He had
Justin.
24, and the guy who led had 29.
and he had 12 in one game, and a pass defense that game, and a half a sack, and a quarterback hit. So he put some good things on film.
Yeah.
So I would hope that he would get the opportunity somewhere to at least hop onto a practice squad. If not, there's always Canada. I know that he would be welcomed in with open arms somewhere up there because he's definitely good enough. But it would be really cool to see him get an opportunity in the NFL. In the meantime, he was at the Aberdeen Hoquiam game on Friday night, and I happen to have a picture of him because good guy Joel DeBlanco always up for taking a picture.
Yeah, okay. Mike Bruner.
That would be
Yeah.
more legendary.
Mark Bruner.
Is it Mark Bruner?
Mark
Right?
Bruner.
He was an awesome tight end for the Steelers for a long time. Bit older though.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time thinking of anybody else. At least that's still alive.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's
How many
Joel
dead
DeBlanco. Andrew, is that picking up on the camera?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's him with as you can see, a young Aberdeen fan. Joel wearing some of his Cincinnati Bearcat swag, and Joel's a good guy.
Yeah.
So we're definitely pulling for him here. Maybe we can get a chance to talk to him at some point. But yeah, anything else Seahawks related besides I don't know what I want to happen.
Well, and that's the hard part about
on
it is
this
they
Monday night
They
game.
play Monday night next week, so we're gonna have another show before that. So how much do we want to dig into Monday night now?
Same amount we'll want to dig into it next week.
Yeah.
Okay. I know what I want to happen.
See,
do you
this
want
is
to
the thing.
happen?
What do you want to happen? Who do you want to be right? Who do you want to be wrong in this situation? Do you want Pete Carroll to be the person who made the right decision, or do you want Russell Wilson to be the one who made the right decision?
And
Because I
will
know
you
what
even know that? Based
How do you
on
know
what
that?
happens on Monday? Like even
on Monday you can't tell.
Yeah. Okay.
After the season, you might be able to.
Yeah.
might
be
able to.
Might be able to.
What do you want to happen on Monday, and what do you want? Who do you want to be right, and who do you want to be wrong from the whole situation?
I would like Russell Wilson to look amazing,
Okay.
and Javonte Williams to rush for 4 touchdowns, and the Broncos beat the Seahawks. I will be rooting for that.
Andrew, what do you want to happen? What do you want long term though? Like, who do you want to look like they were right? Do you want Pete Carroll to look like he was right, or do you want to be like, wow, Russell Wilson was right. He should have had A, more input, and B, Pete Carroll is a grumpy old man who's not that good at recognizing talent anymore, and he's going to end up getting shipped out soon.
So the hard part for me is that there's 2 distinctively different paths that were chosen.
Yeah.
Like Pete Carroll said, we're not going to do the thing where we pay a quarterback $40 million a year again.
Yeah.
At least not in the near, and not in any time between now and when Pete Carroll retires are the Seahawks likely to do that again. So he has decided to go back to the model of quarterback on a reasonable contract. Let's use our money elsewhere, try to draft really good defensive players, and go back to the ball control game.
But does that mean that you draft a rookie quarterback, he's super successful, and then you just say, peace out, we'll go find another one?
I think so. I think it means that you have to be
So
drafting
you never have a franchise quarterback that you keep for more than 4 years.
You can keep him 5 if you franchise tag him.
I do think that is the logical conclusion of that school of
That's what
thought,
I was
which is
wondering, yeah.
definitely out
I
there.
don't think Pete cares because in
feel
5
like-
years, Pete's going to be retired, right? He's 70 years old. How much longer is he going to
I
stay?
feel like you
point.
should be drafting, if you believe that, you should be drafting a quarterback in the first 2 rounds at least every other year.
To me, there has to be other factors because I think that there was enough friction between Russ and the guys in the front office, or at the very least, they thought, is the juice worth the squeeze on this one? All of the extra attention and energy that's being put into making Russ happy, is it still worth it? And all of the salary cap space that he takes up. So that's the only thing that I can make sense in my mind. It's not just that they have this great player and they decided he's not worth being our franchise quarterback anymore. There had to have been some more stuff that happened behind the scenes that was kind of alluded to. Like, they decided he wasn't worth the trouble anymore.
Yeah.
But I think the most likely scenario is that in the immediate future, like the next couple of years, Russ succeeds with the Broncos way more than the Seahawks succeed without him. And not only do I think that's going to happen, but I want that to be what happens because Schneider's going to be around for a while, I would assume. But Pete's probably got a few more years left. And I would like Schneider to be able to learn that lesson for the future that, I know they work together, but he could look at it and he's still young enough that he can be a GM for many more years. And he can go, okay, well, we made this decision before to let our franchise quarterback go. He went on to success. We really struggled for several years.
Yeah.
And so maybe next time they find a franchise quarterback, they'll pay the money to keep him around.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I want Pete to be wrong because I'm upset at both of them for letting the situation become what it is. I think I'm more upset with Pete because reports I've heard, now part of this is from Salk, so who knows if it's true or not, but he said the other day that Russ would have taken a discount and he would have structured his deal in ways that would have helped them out financially had he been given more input / control on decisions made, especially with the offensive line.
That's not a report. That's opinion.
That's opinion?
That's opinion. He thinks that Russell made the team-friendly deal that he made
in Denver
because of the amount of control that he has there, which is amazing.
If
I
that
would put
opinion,
team friendly
he
in
appears
quotes
to-
there because it's team friendly for 2 years and then
He's getting
not
less.
after that.
He's getting less than Kyler Murray.
yeah.
So very team friendly.
So in my opinion, yeah, that's
there's
team
no
friendly.
way he
tough
was.
that he's
there's
33
no
and
way
Kyler
that
Murray-
he wasn't resetting the market.
Yeah, but he's way
Seattle.
better than Kyler Murray.
I know. They're just really different scenarios. It feels like a hard comparison to me.
There is no way that he wasn't going to reset the market if he signed again in Seattle.
Just like his previous contract.
Yes, agreed.
Like, that's what he was
Yeah.
holding out for, and he was fighting for guaranteed money, fully guaranteed money in Seattle. This is
Before-
not even close to fully
Yeah. True,
True.
guaranteed.
Yeah, not even.
So
not even close.
when you look at some of the details, in my mind, yes, is the total still massive? Yes. But when you look at the details, it is very much less than what he was fighting for tooth and nail against the Seahawks constantly. And so I look at that and I'm like, A, either he finally learned his lesson, and if he wants Tom Brady, he has to act like Tom Brady, or B, he finally got something else that he wanted that let him make those decisions.
It could be both of those because Tom Brady has currently a lot of control. He didn't, I think, when he was originally making those deals, though.
In New England?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's a good argument to be made that Russell sees the blueprint that he wants to follow is him having a ton of control and then him giving the team the flexibility to do what he wants them to do.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I'm upset at both of them for getting themselves into the situation that there had to be a breakup, because I think there did. But I'm so mad about that. But I want Pete Carroll to understand that he made the poor decision to let it get to what it was. And again, it's not even that Russell should have had control, but it was that, hey, Pete, you're not making good decisions. Your philosophy on picking up offensive linemen is absolutely stupid. Getting a bunch of really cheap offensive linemen and hoping some of them work out instead of going out and getting a high-level offensive lineman at each position is insane and dumb. And it led to your quarterback leading the league in sacks for the time he was there because you kept scattershotting the same amount of money at a bunch of cheap offensive linemen instead of going out and getting a top guy to protect your quarterback. And that was dumb, and that ticked off your quarterback because he kept getting smoked. And then the one time he talked about it, everybody put him on blast for going, oh, can you believe Russell Wilson talking about his offensive line? What? That was the one time, and then you didn't back him up. You said, well, I think that sacks are due to a lot of different things. And it's like, yeah, they are. But not somebody who gets sacked constantly and your offensive line constantly sucks. So that's why I want Pete Carroll to be wrong. That's why I want Russell Wilson to be successful, especially now that his new deal isn't worth as much as he probably could have fought for. But I'm ticked off at both of them, and I'm tired of Russell Wilson being in our 2-minute drill intro.
I like it. I miss Russ.
Anyway.
See, I want Pete to be right, but I'm worried that he's very wrong.
Well,
I want him to be right because if he's not right, we're in for
a sucky couple of years.
I would say we'd be very lucky for it to be a sucky couple of years. I think no matter what, we're in for a sucky couple of years.
Oh my God. We'd be lucky for it to be a sucky couple of years?
I think that if Pete is wrong, we could be set up for another bad...
Super sucky.
Another bad, 6 or 7 years.
Oh, I see. It wasn't the level of suck that you were disagreeing
It's the
with.
2
It was the
years.
length of time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that even if Pete's right...
I thought you were saying they were
we're
going to have negative amounts of
a
wins.
bad year this year and a bad year next year. I think
sense.
that's if Pete's right.
Yeah.
If Pete's wrong, we'll have a bad time until he leaves. And who knows when that will be. You sounded like... I'm a little bit more... I don't think he's in a hurry to leave. And he looks really healthy.
And that may be true because, like you said, he's a 70-year-old man, but he's a very spry 70-year-old man. But it was like a 3-year contract extension. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
So I want to say he's under contract till he's 73.
Okay.
And I believe the way that was discussed was, that's when Pete's going to go. So I don't know that for a fact. I just know more
I feel
like
that's been the way those last 2 or 3 contracts have been.
That's probably
discussed.
true. Yeah, that's probably true. I was going much more, not by anything that I know, but much more like the tone of what people were saying when he signed his last contract extension was, this is probably it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So maybe he will coach till he's 77. Pull a Tom Brady of coaches.
So this is...
I'm more worried that he could be wrong and still coach until he's 97. Okay.
Oh, boy.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yoinks. Think how many more times the game will evolve over the next 27 years.
Oh my gosh.
Quarterbacks will be throwing for 1,000 yards a game.
It'll be like B football, 8-man football.
There will be no such thing as sacks anymore because quarterbacks will wear flags.
Cornerbacks will line up and then bow as the wide receiver goes past them.
You have to bow. You can guard him, but you have to bow for a minimum of a half a second when he gets off the line.
You may chase the wide receiver.
Don't touch him, though. If you breathe on him, that's a flag. If you kick up grass off your cleats and it touches the wide receiver, that's a flag.
Sounds
That's where we are 27 years from now.
worryingly possible.
Justin, do you want to cry about your Keeper League fantasy team now or later?
Do I have to?
You don't
No.
have to. I'm just offering it to you.
Later.
Okay. Then I think that's going to do it for our first half of the show, which is... Is this different? Have we done this before?
We did this before, but this is a kind of a new look we're going to try to do this every week where we break it into a Northwest Sports podcast and a local podcast separately. So if people only want one or the other, it's easy access for them. However, if you are viewing on YouTube, stay right where you are because this video is just going to go straight through. We're going to have a break of a few minutes while we get set up for the next podcast, but the video will just keep going straight on through. Andrew, anything else that's important to note about this?
Well, really quick, Ethan Worrell chimed in on
Hey!
YouTube
Hey,
and
Ethan.
said,
Ethan.
"You guys," he said, "we're amazing and thank you so much."
Ethan, we are going to
What a
talk
nice guy.
about some local sports. So we're going to talk about that Aberdeen game, which I saw you at, by the way. Didn't get a chance to say hi, but I was glad to see you there.
Yeah, but this will conclude the Northwest Sports version. If you want to listen to the Grays Harbor Sports podcast, just download our next one and listen right on through. As I mentioned already, if you're on the YouTube video, just keep listening. But for now, we're going to conclude the Northwest Sports podcast. So for my co-host Daniel, entranced by the beaver, Hargrove.
And my co-host, Justin, it's not the level of suck.
And our trusty producer, Andrew, super sucky couple of years. Gross.
You've been listening to the scrimmage.
I'm going to Hargrove it over there. Welcome to the Grays Harbor Sports edition of the Scrimmage podcast this week. As I mentioned on the end of the Northwest Sports podcast, we're doing things a little bit differently. We started without Daniel.
You guys are jerks.
Thought it would be funny. We're doing things a little bit differently. We're going to break it into two podcasts weekly, where on one of them we talk about Northwest sports, so Mariners, Seahawks, Blazers, Huskies, Cougars, definitely a lot of Oregon Ducks.
Hey!
But
You get that out of your mouth.
we're going to have
Little
a separate,
Blazers as possible.
a separate podcast where we talk about local sports, Grays Harbor sports, what happened around here, and the idea of that is, so those of you who only want one or the other, it will be quickly and easily accessible to you. And if you only care about local sports, you don't have to listen to us ramble about Pete Carroll
or
for
even
40
if
minutes.
you care about regional sports, but you really don't care what we have to say about it. Which
That's
would
not
be
a thing.
Very
Hey,
reasonable.
Everyone should care what we have. Daniel had some really good, passionate takes about Pete Carroll.
I got
in
hot.
that last. Yeah, you did.
Heated.
Yeah, I could tell. But we do have a very exciting local sports podcast because we're going to discuss. We have no athlete of the week named right now. We're going to have to come up with it on the fly.
Do I?
But we have opening week of high school football.
Yes.
So we've got our few local teams to report.
Are you going to do a roundup? Or
We're going to do a roundup.
Are we going to do a roundup?
We're going to name an athlete of the week. Later in this podcast, we will reveal the results of our first week of our Pick'em contest.
You Price is Righted me hardcore, and I don't like it.
I don't think you can call it a Price is Right because I still went over.
Oh, you're right. You can't go over?
Yeah, you can't go over. Daniel predicted the Aberdeen Hoquiam score as 42-0. I predicted it 41-0, and they won 40-0.
I'm so mad.
So I was the most right, even though Daniel predicted it almost perfectly.
You metagamed him.
Yeah, I thought for sure, like, I was watching that game, and they got to 40, and I was like, I easily have the best prediction here. And then I went and checked, and I was like, you jerk!
I didn't predict.
You didn't do scores, yeah.
So I don't know.
You abstained.
Well, Justin said I didn't need to after. I didn't realize they were required, and then Justin was like, "Nah, you don't need to."
During our break, and people who watch Letterkenny will get this. During our break, when we were waiting for the next podcast to start, my wife sent me a text that said, "Pitter patter, get after it."
Pitter batter.
Let's get at her.
Pitter batter.
Anyway, we have some news to report on local sports, so let's get it going with the local sports roundup.
Boom.
Aberdeen handled Hoquiam easily on Friday at historic Olympic Stadium for their third straight victory in the annual Myrtle Street rivalry game. Behind the efforts of Trey Anderson and Jeremy Sawyer, the Bobcats dispatched the Grizzlies 40-0, which was closest to my prediction. Anderson led Aberdeen with 130 yards rushing on 12 carries, while Sawyer rushed 13 times for 90 yards and caught 3 passes for 58 yards. The duo scored 2 touchdowns apiece. Cale Goings and Marcus Hale also each scored a TD on the ground for the Bobcats. Aberdeen outgained Hoquiam 426 yards to 50 yards in the contest.
All those stats are just a little bit different from the ones, it's fairly normal that happens. The ones that Ian and I take on the radio, on air, I gotta say, we're pretty darn
Really
close.
super close, I was noticing.
Yeah, we had him for like 433 total yards to Hoquiam's 47. We had Sawyer for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. I gotta say, Marcus Hale, his touchdown run was like a 43-yard touchdown run or something like that. I also want to bring up that I think his name's Kyle Miller. Gosh darn it, I should have wrote down his first name. But anyway, Miller for Aberdeen not only had a touchdown taken away because there was a holding on the play, or there was a penalty on the play. He's a senior, but also he had an interception taken away at the end of the game that for the life of me, we can't figure out why. And that was a bit of a bummer because he was a senior. For Hoquiam, the only highlights came from the defensive side of the ball. Attard had a forced fumble. Monroe recovered that fumble. Xander Jump had a interception, and Atwell had an interception. So basically, their only highlights came on defense, and they got 3 turnovers from the Bobcats in the first half.
When the roundup's over, I have a couple more questions for you about that game,
Okay,
too.
sounds good. Elma protected its home turf on Friday in a non-league cross-class contest against Centralia. Eagles, take that, Centralia. Eagles junior quarterback Carter Studer rushed for 1 touchdown and passed for another in the 20-7 victory. Austin Salazar scored Elma's other touchdown on a fumble recovery in the second quarter. Isaac Phillips led Elma's rushing attack with 86 yards on 18 carries, while senior receiver Gibson Kane led receiving with 30 yards on 5 catches, including an 11-yard touchdown catch.
I think that's definitely an encouraging sign to see Elma go out and beat a 2A team in the first week of the season, and a good indication of hopefully what's going to be some really competitive football to come in the Evergreen 1A. In another Evergreen 1A matchup against a 2A team, Montesano head coach Terry Jensen cited mental errors in the Bulldogs' 33-20 season-opening loss to Black Hills on Friday in Tumwater. Montesano played much of the game within striking distance of the Wolves, but never led in the contest. Despite leaving with an injury for a couple of series in the second half, senior quarterback Jaden McElravy passed for 198 yards, while also leading Monty in rushing with 44 yards. McElravy scored a touchdown on the ground and threw a touchdown on a deep bomb to Bodie Poehler, both in the second quarter. Jackson Wilson connected with Tyler Johansson, both those kids are juniors, for Monty's other touchdown while McElravy was out with an injury. And I have a lot more thoughts to share on that game when the roundup is over as well.
Oh, I bet. Montesano's girls soccer opened the season with a 5-0. Oh, look at me using nil there. Over Chelan, take that Chelan, on Friday in Montesano. Returning All-State forward Michaela Stanfield scored 2 goals for the Bulldogs, as did senior forward Lily Kazi. Addie Kursker capped scoring in the 72nd minute by booting a 20-yard free kick into the net. Ooh, a 20-yarder.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's a long distance for a free kick to nail that in.
Aberdeen's Britt Radjic, did I say that right? Probably.
I think it's Radjic.
Radjic and Montesano's Haley Blankis helped the Chambers Bay 17U PGA Junior League All-Star team to a victory at a sectional qualifying event on Saturday, August 20th.
I don't know most of those words, but it's good.
The Eagle Crest Golf Resort in Redmond, Oregon. And anytime people are jumping states to play golf, that means you know they're real good.
Yeah, and Redmond has some nice courses.
Oh boy. Radjic and her partner finished with a 1 under par 35, while Blankis and her teammate shot an even par 36 in the 2-person scramble 9-hole round format. I would like to say
That sounds fun.
a lot of the info that we got here was from the Daily World Sports Department, so thank you to the Daily World for following our local athletes and giving us a lot of this information. But that will conclude the local sports roundup.
So, a couple of things. A, I see Haley Blankis, or I used to see back when I had time to golf and didn't have a torn Achilles. Mm-hmm. I used to see Haley Blankis at Highlands all the time. Mm-hmm. She puts in a lot of time, and it doesn't surprise me at all that her and Britt Radjic were able to play very well at this high-level competition. Also, how fun would it be to play in a 2-person scramble, like competitively?
That sounds like a blast.
To go even, like, that's darn good for 2 people. Mm-hmm. Like, I've played in 4-person scrambles with, like, all of these weird bonuses that, like, let you cheat throughout the day. And
Not cheat, bend the rules like a Hargrove.
well, I mean, it's technically not cheating because they're giving, like, you just have to buy things to get, like, free shots and stuff. You know, like putting string and stuff.
Andrew and I played in a scramble like that a few years ago.
Yeah, so it's not cheating, but in the world of golf, it would be considered cheating. Like, you get a random mulligan.
You don't get to quote your score to other people without specifying the holes that you cheated in.
I don't remember what the advantages were, but Andrew and I were both too cheap to buy any advantages. But one of the people that we were playing with bought like a packet of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
You always want to play with the rich people or the generous people. It could be either one.
People who really care about local sports, because I think it was an Aberdeen football fundraiser.
Youth football fundraiser.
Yeah. I've played in ones where you see other teams, like there's this thing called putting string, where if you get the ball on the green, you get to use string to make it like, oh, that's good. And you see people just like walking out with string like they're getting ready to make a fence with it around like 40 acres. And you're like, well, we can't compete against them. Great.
Maybe putt well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through our pick'em results, and if you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you probably saw our post with all of our picks from this past week.
Would that be like Fittersgram?
Maybe.
Can you combine 3 things, Justin?
You can do whatever you want, Daniel. You make the rules.
You told me before that I didn't make the rules, and I had to do it your very specific way.
I don't have any rules about combining 3 words.
Okay, gotcha.
But we did a pick'em contest, and we're starting with just the 4 main local teams. So Aberdeen, Hoquiam, Elba, Montesano.
Don't say main. The 4 biggest.
The 4 biggest and main local teams that we cover. We're starting that way, and then as weeks go on, maybe after a couple weeks, we expand out to some of the 2B teams, Acosta, North Beach, PL Willapa Valley, Raymond South Bend will expand out, and then towards the end of the season, we'll expand out to like some of the 1B schools like Tahola and Wishkah,
Lake Quinault.
And so some of them used to have combined. I'll have to figure out a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I need to do some research on this. Oakville.
But for starters,
we got to get to Oakville.
Yeah.
Merriam Knight.
Yeah. 8-man teams.
We're in the Merriam Knight district right now.
We are. Oh.
So we
That was a
started
weird
with just picking 3 games this week, and in addition to the 3 of us, we also roped in some.
legends.
I was gonna say, like, if of the 5 of us that are in this competition, probably the 2 people that we got to join us are more credible than any of us.
Ian told me that this is his 23rd year covering high school football in Grace Harbor.
Yeah, so Ian Cope,
Yep.
the voice of Grace Harbor high school football.
There you go.
As Daniel has dubbed him, and
Yep.
he's very uncomfortable with.
Yes.
And also Rob Burns, who is the former sports editor and longtime sports reporter at the Daily World newspaper. They have joined us in this weekly Pick'em contest. And I got to say, most of you did pretty bad. We only picked 3 games, and 3 of you only got 1 right.
3 of us?
2 of us got 2 right. Ian Cope and I both correctly picked Elma over Centralia.
Yep.
So we will jump out to the early 2-1 lead while Andrew, Daniel, and Rob are 1-2. But I want to run through what some of the predictions were and how things happened very differently, or right what we thought they would be.
Yeah.
Daniel and I, as we already mentioned, were closest on the Aberdeen game. So Aberdeen beat Hoquiam 40-0. Daniel had 42-0. I had 41-0.
Yep.
Both Rob and Ian had Hoquiam scoring points, which ended up being wrong.
Yeah. Not the case.
The big game of the week where we all got it wrong
Yeah.
was Montesano at Black Hills.
Yeah. That didn't go well.
Yeah.
I was the worst.
Rob was, you had 35-7 Monty.
Yeah, that was
Rob,
not good.
Rob picked Monty, but he picked him to win 31-27. So Rob's the closest.
Yeah.
In the Elma game, as I already mentioned, Ian and I picked right. We had basically the same prediction, which was he had 28-21, I had 27-20. It ended up being 20-7.
Okay.
So you picked
So it was a 13
Centralia,
point difference.
even though I was just basing my entire picks on
what
you
Justin told us.
which was that Elma was terrible.
Yeah.
Well, I said
You
that
misled us,
I
sir.
said that when I watched Elma
I don't
play
do my
against
own research, okay?
against Montesano and Rochester in the Jamboree specifically, they really struggled. So for them to come out in week 1, but Elma last
wouldn't be
year
upset
was
about
respectable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm getting into this bad habit of talking over you, so I apologize.
Like a recent bad habit?
yeah.
Oh,
Of like starting to yell while you're still going.
okay.
So I apologize for that.
Okay.
But
I am not offended by that remotely. It's also not a recent bad habit.
Centralia is the only school in Lewis County that I can badmouth.
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited that they suck.
Good. And I think it's a combination of Centralia is probably real bad.
Yeah.
And Elma is more of what we hoped they would be and less of what I saw at the Jamboree.
Oh, good.
Hopefully. Because what Elma had struggled for several years, and then last year they were significantly more competitive and kind of got unlucky by the fact that the league was so good that they ended up aced out of the playoffs.
So good, and they had a ton of injuries
Right.
and COVID issues.
Right.
That just killed them. They would have been... Gosh, yeah. And the league, you're right, because Eatonville and Tenino was actually good, which is weird.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I keep seeing Tenino popping up in all these preseason and I don't know what happened with Tenino in week 1.
They won.
But did they?
Yeah, they were down 7-6 early to PL Willapa Valley, so they were playing a smaller school.
Okay.
But they ended up winning like 28 or something to 7.
Smaller school, smaller team, lower classification, but generally a very competitive one.
And a lot of people are thinking are going to be really good in that 2B ranks this year.
I was having a hard time believing that Tenino, after losing Takari Hickel, who basically was their team. Like, I'm not saying that they didn't have other good players. They did.
Yeah.
They had games where they had 3 rushers that all went for 150 plus yards.
Well, they scored 80 points in a playoff game.
Yeah, I know they were good.
Bonkers.
And they had a couple of those guys returning.
Yeah.
In
But
football.
Takari rushed for like 2,000 yards.
Yeah, the guy was insane.
And he went to Oregon State.
Yeah, there's a reason why he's still playing for a Beavers team.
So I was having a difficult time registering them as a top 10 team when, like, historically they are not that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Tenino throughout the year.
We will.
Yeah.
But I'm having the same feeling. I'm having the same exact feeling as you. I'm like, their stud's gone.
Yeah.
Historically, they stink. You're going to have to prove it to me.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
I struggle with Tenino a little bit. They, I feel like there's always some kind of incident when we go to Tenino for something.
Oh, are they turning into forks?
Or is it that you're with Monty?
It's like there's
Well,
always
Forks is like legendary.
Yeah.
For if you go to Forks, you're starting 10 points down in basketball and 7 points down in football. And I don't even know how many runs in baseball. All I know is that they have legit potholes on their field.
Yeah. No, in Tenino, it's more like a general sports culture thing where...
Oh, I ran into that this year in All-Stars for baseball. Insane. Sorry.
I'm trying to recall...
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I can give
And not even
examples.
All-Stars, like even regular season too.
During last year's
Ridiculous.
football game, Montesano at Tenino, the referees literally had to stop the game because there was a fan that was so unruly that was just outside the border on the sidelines. You know how you can watch kind of from the track?
Yeah.
A referee literally stopped the game for a fan to be escorted from the field, and they won. They beat us. But that's how...
Wow.
And I'm trying to think back on a Tenino game where something like that didn't happen. And I hope Tenino fans are not listening and getting offended by this, but at the same time, like, get your crap figured out.
No, I
people.
hope they are.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
our core demographic. We can make them angry.
exactly.
So
That helps
there's
us.
a
And I will balance it by saying, personally, I hope Takari Hickle is the best player in Oregon State history.
yeah. Good. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Takari
also-
Hickle, formerly of Elma.
Get your crap figured out, Tenino. Because also, I was involved in a baseball game this year, which was super relaxed and like recreational level baseball, and you were giving me crap about the lineup substitutions that
Yes.
we were doing when most of the teams in the league, including you, were batting like 12 players.
One of
So
the
lineup isn't exactly important.
one of the
calm
most
yourself.
unruly parental fan bases I've ever encountered was at a Tenino at Hoquiam basketball game many years ago, in which usually referees do a really good job of ignoring stuff.
Yeah.
The refs were turning around during the game trying to figure out who was saying things.
Yeah. I think one of the worst ones I found was at a playoff game. Oh gosh, was it Castle Rock? It was one of those it was one of those Trico teams, so I can really just like lay into them.
Yeah. Screw you, Trico.
It was either Castle Rock or no, it wasn't Kalama.
Columbia White Salmon.
I'm just gonna go Castle Rock.
Okay.
I generally dislike them anyway. But anyway, there was one game where they were saying the types of things to officials. It was in the game before I broadcast, and they were saying the types of things where I was like, okay, that's outside of sports related, and you're just a bad human for saying those words. Like, it was real bad.
Our list of schools outside of our immediate area that we hate is getting really long.
It is. It is.
Because I'm going to talk about Black Hills in a little bit also.
Oh, I hate Black Hills too.
But Daniel, I have some questions for you about the Aberdeen Hoquiam game.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, number one,
It was a weird game. at the start.
halftime,
Yeah.
where this game where you and I both predicted a mercy rule game and ended up being 40-0. Halftime was 13-0.
Yeah.
So what was the big difference first half to second half?
Aberdeen stopped giving Hoquiam the ball.
Oh,
Like,
right.
literally, they had 3 turnovers in the first half. The first Aberdeen play of the game, like after the kickoff, the first play of the game, they fumbled the snap, tried to pick it up, couldn't, and Hoquiam dove on it.
Okay.
So the very first play of the game, Hoquiam recovers the fumble, starts off in great field possession, goes like 3 and out with probably like 4 penalties, moves backwards, and ends up punting. The next drive, was it the next drive? I think the next drive they threw a pick, and at some point, I think then they scored on their next 2 drives to make it 13-0, and then they threw another interception. And here's the thing: is it was really funny because as I'm broadcasting the game, I think this happened before both interceptions, at least before the first one. I said, "Oh, is those wind chimes?"
Wind chime.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, before the first interception, I was like, I thought it was a ringtone for a second. Sorry.
Oh.
Anyway, I was like, wow, Cale Goings is making excellent decisions, especially on these read options. And then, like, literally the next play, you can tell it was a designed play that they worked on in practice that was supposed to be a home run hitter, right? So he takes the snap, play action, rolls out to his right, and everything's moving to the right, and then he stops and chucks it back deep to the left. So you can tell in practice they had worked on it like, oh, we're going to get this home run ball, guys. But he stops, looks to the left, and instead of going, oh, crap, Hoquiam actually has 2 defenders on that one receiver out there who's supposed to be wide open. He throws it anyway. And so it resulted in an interception. But you can tell that they had worked on it constantly in practice. Like, oh, guys, we're going to get him for like a 100-yard touchdown here. And
So there may not have actually been a read involved.
Yeah, it either could have been not a read or they had just practiced it so many times, assuming that it would work. And the other play was very similar to that. Was it the other interception? There was another play that maybe should have been intercepted that was very similar to that, where it was like everything seemed like this play was designed to be a great big play, and they had worked on it so many times during the week that it was just kind of built into his head, like, hey, this is our deep threat. And then it just ended, oh yeah, it was a double move. It was like a guy runs a stop route, a guy runs an out and up around the stop route, and it was like, oh, he pumped the throw, and it was supposed to be like this big play. But in both situations, Hoquiam actually covered it right. Mm-hmm. And so
That's the worst.
I know. And so as a quarterback, you're supposed to go, oh crap, that didn't work. Make the decision to do something else, even if it's just run or take a sack. But instead, completely understandably, and especially in the first game, Kale was like, no, this is what we planned all week. I'm going to chuck it. And in both situations, they got picked off. After that, Aberdeen just dominated. Like, their defense, I don't see how playing a smaller team, like their defense is very fast on the back end and very big up front. Mm-hmm. That's hard to move the ball against consistently. So I think their defense is going to be really legit. Their offense is very creative and very multiple, and they don't have the quarterback running all the way to the sideline every play to get the play. Like, it looks like an actual modern offense, and this is the first time in a decade I've been able to say that, and I'm excited about this Aberdeen offense. It looks good and exciting, and I think they're going to be pretty darn fun to watch this year.
So you mentioned the size up front on defense, and the other thing I wanted to ask you
Jabron
about...
Books and...
Is it Paul Baltazar?
Is it Paul Baltazar? I think it's Baltazar or something. Anyway,
Okay.
He's like 6'6" and 280 or something like that, and Jabron's 6'4", 325.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous.
So they have massive kids up front.
Yeah.
I was curious your thoughts on offensive line play, and was a big factor in Aberdeen's dominance on offense. Was it skill position players like Jeremy Sawyer and Trey Anderson making big plays, and how big of a difference did it make having those big guys up front and how the offensive line moved the pile?
Let's put it this way. There were multiple plays where I was like, oh, Jeremy Sawyer, Trey Anderson, what a great run, like able to read that little crease or make that move at the point of attack. But then there was also like 10 times, including a few touchdown runs, where I was like, wow, what a run. I mean, at the point of attack, they had about 3 truck lengths of an alley to run through, but then once they got into the second level, they either juked somebody out or trucked somebody. But, I mean, the offensive line at the point of attack had about 10 plays where it was like, I mean, I could have walked through the hole. So I think it was a mix of both. And that's what you want to see, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you want to see
absolutely.
massive holes open up, and then the running back not only get the yards that they're supposed to, but then make a play after that. And on one of them, Jeremy, it was so funny. So this massive hole opens up. It's got to be 5 yards wide, right? He runs through the hole, and then as he's deciding which way to go around the lineman or the fullback that's currently blocking the middle linebacker, he slips, goes down into like a baseball catcher's position, trying to keep his knees off the ground. So like two-legged squat, slips, slides for about 2 yards because it's Hoquiam and it's grass, then gathers himself, jukes out the safety that's coming, and runs for a touchdown. And I'm like, I don't know what to talk about on this play.
Yeah.
The offensive line was amazing. The blocking was great, and Jeremy just did something out of the Matrix. So it was pretty sweet.
Great.
And Trey must have trucked like 4 people at the end of his runs. He does not look like the type of player who's trucking people, but they have him playing in that fullback role now that Jacob Bowers is injured and out for the season, which sucks because he's a very talented player. But they put Trey there, and so he's getting a ton more touches, and he's showing that he can run with power, not only speed. So that's cool.
Great. So I know we already knew going into this that last year was really difficult for Hoquiam. I think we're hoping that Hoquiam can, over the next few years, kind of get back into what they were, which is, it's a really interesting and weird thing to see.
Yeah.
Hoquiam struggle so badly because we hadn't really seen it. They were either okay or really good for a long stretch of time.
A very long stretch of time, yeah.
So we knew that Hoquiam was going to struggle a bit, but I also think that knowing that Aberdeen is kind of a sleeper in that Evergreen 2A where there's always Tumwater, WF West is going to be really good again. Shelton's supposed to be good as well.
I always forget about that Shelton's in there too.
Yeah, because they used to be 3A, now they're 2A.
Yeah.
So Shelton's in there as well, and they're supposed to be good. So it's a really, really difficult league.
Yeah.
And Aberdeen is kind of like on the fringe. But this group of seniors that Aberdeen has now, those are the kids who didn't allow a point through their 8th grade season.
Yep.
Like this is the year.
And a lot of the juniors who were playing with them too. I mean, Jabron was playing, I believe, with them.
Yeah, Japron was playing a year.
He was playing up.
Yeah.
in 8th grade football in 7th grade.
I think he ended up, didn't he play 1 year and then take a year off from junior high football?
I'm not sure. I
think he played, I could be wrong about this. I think he played 8th grade football in his 7th grade year and then took a year off of junior high football.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Because they wanted him to be able to play.
Because they wanted him to not accidentally kill somebody?
That is exactly my thought, but that's not with any internal knowledge.
Dude, there was a play that would have been called a personal foul in the pros, which I don't think they have a rule for it in high school. But Xander jump, I was shocked that he got up after it.
Hit by Jabron?
Hit by Jabron right after he threw it, and all of his body weight landed right on top of Xander jump. And I'm thinking, in the NFL, that's a personal foul because you're not allowed to land on people. And he just crushed him.
Are you not allowed to land on people or the
quarterback?
quarterback?
The quarterback. You're not allowed to land on the quarterback.
Did I ever tell you about my brief interaction with Jabron during the offseason?
No.
Okay. This was one where I was like, I hope I didn't awaken some kind of a sleeping giant. But I know Jabron doesn't need motivation from me to get up for a game, right?
Right.
And I'll just say, since I think we kind of put a bow on the Aberdeen Hoquiam thing, next week.
Right before you put
ahead.
a bow on it, I do want to say that I think Hoquiam showed me some things on defense. They actually had a goal line stand, or not goal line, but it was like 4th and 2 at the 10 or something like that. And Aberdeen's a legit running team, and they stopped them for a loss of a yard. Mm-hmm. They showed a couple of things that I think that this should be better than last year, and I think they're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Which was encouraging to me. And it's weird to say that after a 40-0 loss, but maybe I think that's because I think Aberdeen's going to be really good this year.
I think a 40-0 loss with the perspective that that's a really good team that's a class higher than you is fair.
And that Todd Bridge said in the interview beforehand, his last comment was, "We remember 2019." And I was like,
was that running up the score?
Hoquiam won 56-3 that year, and they kept their starters in the entire game and were throwing it deep at the end of the game.
Which, to be fair to Daniel, he hated.
I loathe that decision. And I will say forever, keep your starters in, be mired in mediocrity year after year, take your starters out, and watch your dynasty rise like Montesano. Because their backups get varsity time. I've said this for so many years. I'm just gonna stop.
That's fine.
I've said it like a million times.
You gave the whole speech during the game, and I appreciated it.
Yeah,
because I think you're right.
I'll do it every year.
So I ran into Jabron at a track meet.
Okay.
You ran into him?
Dang,
Well,
that must
not
have hurt.
Not physically, because
Oh, okay.
I would still not have gotten up. Even though this was several months ago, I'd still be on the ground at Roddle Field. But no, I was talking to a friend of mine who is an Aberdeen fan and knows Jabron, and he came up and he was talking to him, and I was talking a little bit with him very briefly. And I said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm really looking forward to football season. I'm really rooting for you guys. It's just too bad that in week 2 you have to start with an early loss." And the look he gave me, at least initially, implied that he did not think my joke was funny. And keeping in mind that Jabron is a massive human being.
Yes.
And then he walked away.
No, he didn't even say anything.
No.
Oh no.
And I turned to my friend, my Aberdeen friend, and I was like, I don't think he got the joke. And he let me stew for a little bit, and then eventually he told me he turned around and smiled when he was walking away. So,
That's
okay,
funny.
so he got the joke. He didn't allow me to know that he got the joke.
That's great.
I thought I had just offended him.
That's hilarious.
Jabron, hopefully you're not still mad about that.
That's awesome.
But anyway, that will lead me into what I want to talk about, which is the Montesano Black Hills game. Knowing that next week, what has become a huge rivalry game of Aberdeen versus Montesano will be taking place. It is right now scheduled to be at Roddle Field.
But
I have been led to believe that there is a possibility
there's a chance.
that it can be moved to Stewart. I'm in.
Telling me there's a chance.
I'm in like all of the.
You're
I have a son on the Montesano varsity team, so I'm in like these Facebook groups and group chats and stuff, and everything is proceeding as if the game is played at Roddle.
Okay.
But I don't know what the deadline is, but there's a possibility. I have been told that it could still be played at Stewart Field.
That's what I've heard.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
I know
Have you
as a
heard?
field update, the turf is laid.
Oh.
They were working on sewing in the lines and the numbers the other
It's
day.
gonna have numbers. Thank God.
I think so.
Right?
Did the old field not have
No,
numbers?
the old field
Okay.
didn't have numbers.
So they were
and it
working
was
on sewing in
so
those
frustrating.
things. Goalposts still needed to go up at last update, but that was a couple days ago. And there's also a project going on with the bathrooms and the concession stands that's ongoing. But if those things can get done, by whatever the deadline that I don't know is, maybe that game can be played at Stewart Field.
That'd be cool.
I'm obviously pulling for Montesano here, but I want Aberdeen to get their field crap together.
Yep.
And that whole thing was such a mess that I will feel better about it if that game gets to be played in Aberdeen.
Yeah. And they didn't take my advice, by the way.
Which was?
That they should have Aberdeen's PA announcer do the game, that they should put Aberdeen's
Yeah.
student section in the correct
Well,
spot. Like, none of that really happened.
I think
it
instead...
was a Hoquiam home game.
That's what I felt like.
Yeah.
Well, they did a swap. So, like, usually they trade years. So now, instead of it being Hoquiam this year and Aberdeen this year and Hoquiam next year, they switch.
Okay.
So it'll be... Technically, next year is Hoquiam's year, but you'll have 2 years in a row that are played in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And I would assume that since when they
Gotcha.
schedule these things with Monty as well, they're usually a home and a home and home. And Monty didn't play Aberdeen last year. So I'm going to assume that if they get the game in Roddle this year, that next year they'll get Stewart instead. So there's still a trade. But the thing for me is that like that doesn't do anything for this year's seniors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this year's Aberdeen seniors didn't get to play at their home field
Yep.
in their junior or senior year.
Frustrating.
So that is part of the reason why I will feel better if the game gets to be played at Stewart Field.
Same here.
But go ahead.
Are you done? Are you going to talk about the Black Hills game
I am,
first?
yeah.
Do you want to talk about Black Hills first, and then we'll get to the Aberdeen Monty matchup?
Do you want to?
I don't want to talk a lot about Black Hills.
break?
I want to talk briefly about Black Hills, and then we'll do a commercial break,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about next week's
Because
matchup.
there's
Okay.
some interesting storylines.
Ooh. So the Monty Black Hills game.
Spooky.
The one thing that I realized that I left out of the local sports roundup was that McElravy's passing touchdown. Oh, I did say it. It was a deep bomb to Bodie Polar. It was like, when I say deep bomb, it was like a 53-yard play. And it was like a ball that traveled about 40 yards in the air.
Oh, wow.
It was a total dime. Bodie Polar also, later in the game, had a pick off of a tip by Jackson Wilson in the fourth quarter that helped Montesano get into striking. So Montesano had the ball in the fourth quarter, down by 6 points at around the 30-yard line. But they struggled so badly to run against Black Hills and what they were doing. Black Hills' reputation, I don't know, Andrew, if you got with Aberdeen what the reputation is for Black Hills.
Yeah.
Their reputation is they throw quirky crap at you repeatedly. And even though they're generally not very good, sometimes they will have games that are closer than they should be, or they'll win games that they shouldn't because they throw something at you that you weren't ready for.
Sort of a Boise State thing.
Maybe.
Or
Yeah.
The way Boise State used to
So
But
Black Hills did this
You did
thing.
mention that they had a few all-league players returning from last year, right?
They did.
So they were talented and threw
And-
quirky crap.
So I'm not saying that they're bad. That was like, so by far, I'm not trying to say that they didn't deserve the win or they're bad or anything
Okay,
like that.
gotcha.
They had one of their guys that was a halfback that's like 6'5", 230 pounds and can move. Their other running back was also good, really hard to bring down. Their quarterback made some really nice throws, also a couple of really bad ones, but made a lot of really nice plays as well. They had guys who could play. But the thing that I felt stopped Montesano from being able to run the ball was Black Hills on virtually every play, maybe 80% of the time, overloaded one side of the line and then pinched their two inside guys across the linemen. So they were overloading one side trying to get a defensive end free and clear off the edge, but then while Montesano, they couldn't get anything inside going because they were pinching those guys and they were able to make those plays. I hope I'm using terminology that makes sense to everybody. They're
so.
like, instead of when the defensive linemen were running up, instead of going straight forward towards the quarterback, they were running across the lineman to the other side. So they were lining up in a way that made it seem like they were just going to rush everybody around one side, and then they sent a couple guys across the middle, kind of.
Interesting.
And
I love
believe
creativity, so this seems super fascinating.
I believe Montesano had, they knew that some of that was coming and had planned for it, but didn't anticipate it being as much as it was, or with the added wrinkles of it. And mostly the only things that Montesano did offensively that really worked were getting deep passes on a rollout. Because if McElravy tried to stay in the pocket, he was getting hit way too quickly. Their sweep plays, they couldn't get off fast enough to get around the guys that were coming off the one side. They couldn't get anything going up the middle because of the linemen that were pinching. And I felt watching it that they probably really needed an element of outside running to their game, which is probably where they really missed Jack Holmstrom, who would have been the big guy from last year, who would have provided that this year, but he's not playing. So it was frustrating to watch because in addition to the fact that I felt like what Black Hills was running scheme-wise was perfect to combat what Monty wanted to do, there was also just so many mistakes. You know, a ball that on a potential fourth down conversion was right in a receiver's hands, and it bounced off of his hands right into the hands of a defensive back. Multiple misreads to where Black Hills was able to get the ball out to the flat. I felt like there were so many individual mistakes that, as frustrating as it was to watch, because as a Monty fan, I'm not used to watching those games and seeing that. It also, I felt a little bit encouraged about things going forward because I thought, how likely is it that this group of kids who I have watched perform really well is making these kind of mistakes that are uncharacteristic. So how many of those in a game that was a one-score game almost all the way through, and they had a chance to win in the fourth quarter? I hope that they can eliminate a lot of the individual mental mistakes so that going forward into next week, we'll have a different team.
And possibly a tougher opponent.
I'd say definitely a tougher opponent.
Okay. So
in my opinion.
So next week, if both teams, because that was the other thing that I just remembered, Aberdeen had the officials seemed really flag happy, but Aberdeen had 13-14 penalties. I know that Monty fans will probably be crushed and hard to believe, and they might start bringing up random discussions about how you have to start bailing water and weird stuff like that. But I'm going to say that, or it could just be that you lost to a couple of bigger schools and you don't have to worry about putting out a fire or bailing water to try and get back to the playoffs.
Well, the schedule is really aggressive.
It is.
So Montesano playing Black Hills at Black Hills. The plan was also to play at Aberdeen.
Yeah.
They're also playing at Shelton. Whew. So this schedule is really difficult, and there's also an at Eatonville game later in the season.
Oh, I hope. I was just in Eatonville yesterday.
Yeah, Northwest Trek.
I was just, we went to Northwest Trek, and I was just grumpy the whole time.
Yeah.
I was just like,
Eatonville. Yeah.
And Courtney was like, sports hate? And I was like, yeah.
So now that you've lost the Black Hills game, Those are all games you could lose. Like it would be completely reasonable to feel like you could have 4 losses and it wouldn't be a fluke or like something was wrong. You played some really good teams. 3 of them were higher classes on the road. One of them might be the best 1A team in the state.
Nah.
Depends on which ranking you look at. It's either Eatonville or Royal.
They had a bunch of seniors last year. I don't see how they're getting... I heartily disagree with those rankings because, A, Eatonville got handed their own butts last year when they played Royal.
But Royal also had a lot of seniors last year.
Yes, but they both had a lot of seniors.
Yeah.
So the whole, like, Eatonville number 1 is just silly to me. Because it wasn't close. They had like 40 yards of offense. That state title game was the same as Aberdeen Hoquiam this year. And yet people are like, oh, Eatonville's the number 1 team in the state. Like, yeah, okay, show it.
Take that, Cruisers.
Stupid Cruisers.
So, as a little preview for this Montesano-Aberdeen game, we will get to that.
Yes.
But, and we're also going to name an Ole Penn Real Estate Athlete of the Week, which is going to be really hard.
Yes.
But first, and then, also I've got poll results. So those
Sweet.
3 things
Yes.
coming up on the other side of this commercial break.
At Ole Penn Real Estate, we provide our foundation on 4 core values. First, we continuously focus on growing our knowledge in the market and in our practices to bring the highest level of competency to our clients. Second, we provide a high level of integrity, compassion, and kindness in every aspect of our business. Third, we put the human element above business through humor, enthusiasm, and patience. And last but not least, we proactively respond to the needs of our clients. Our mission is to create a personal real estate experience, 1 person and 1 home at a time. With Ole Penn, it's personal.
Welcome back to the Scrimmage. I am Justin Domashevitz. Got my co-host Daniel Hargrove here with me, and our trusty producer Andrew Gross. Our plan right now is to preview the Aberdeen Montesano game coming up, then to name an athlete of the week, which is going to be really difficult. I have a little thought in my head about what we might do with that, and then we're going to do poll results from last week's show.
Yes.
So, Daniel, are you guys on the broadcast for that game?
Oh, yeah.
On Friday?
Oh, yeah.
So Daniel and Ian will be there either at Stewart Field or Jack Roddle Field.
There's a chance, because I started this new job, there's a chance that I won't be, and we might try and rope you into it. But we'll see.
Surprise!
I have already been roped, my friend.
There's a problem, though.
My job is to be the spotter for the PA announcer.
What? That's
Yeah.
a stupid decision. You could be on the air.
This is what happened.
Even if it happens in Aberdeen.
I did it in... No. It's only if it's in Monty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it happens in Aberdeen, you.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
But the problem with that, if that happened, is then we would have 2 Monty homers on the call, and that would just be bad.
That would be
That's true.
delicious to listen to.
No, we did...
Not
we,
for you. You're an Aberdeen fan.
We tried that.
I
tried
do
that
love
last
listening to
year.
homers lose.
We tried it last year, and our sports director from KXRO was not happy with the result. So maybe we shouldn't duplicate that this year.
Who was that?
Daniel Hargrove.
Oh,
Yeah.
I hear that guy's a jerk.
well, very concerned that both sides of the issue is being presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway.
I mean that as an actual compliment.
going into this Aberdeen Montesano game, there are definitely some players to watch for. I think one thing that will become abundantly clear to people who watch the game is there's going to be a pretty big size difference in the trenches on the line.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as much on the defensive line for Montesano, but because they have some pretty big kids there. They have a couple that play defensive line that play other positions on offense that are pretty big.
Gotcha.
But on the offensive line for Monty, you're not going to see a 340-pound Jabron Brooks.
Yep.
Or 285 or whatever Baltazar is.
Yeah.
Really big kid. There really isn't one of those, and Monty has gotten away with having some undersized lines and being really competitive by, instilling a very physical nature, and also by scheming in a way that fast linemen benefit you more than bulky linemen. So watch out for that. See how the battle in the trenches goes.
I happen to know that maybe the fastest kid on Montesano's whole team plays offensive line.
It is possible that the kid who ran the fastest 40-yard dash on the team at testing at the beginning of the football season is their right tackle.
It could be.
It could be.
Might be kid named Domashevitz. Just
be
don't
No
know.
relation.
Might be related to me. But yeah, so I think that's one thing that you'll see. As far as skill positions go, I think I still have a big. I'm keeping my eye on Ethan Blundred for Montesano. Okay. This is a kid who's playing their halfback spot. I watched him play last year, a little bit in varsity, but a lot in JV. He is explosive and fast and really hard to bring down. He didn't get a lot of opportunities in this game against Black Hills because of what I felt like was the quirky defensive play calling. The coaches were trying to do other things, and then when they tried to go to Ethan on the draw plays and stuff up the middle, it just wasn't working. There wasn't any place to go. So I've got an eye on Ethan Blundred for Montesano in this game. Bodie Poehler has been the guy through Jamboree and week 1 that has been like the pleasant big surprise for me as far as impact. And it's not because Bodie's a good athlete, and I've always known he's a good athlete.
Yeah.
Football's not his main bag. Like, he's a baseball player. And the big part of the reason why he's even starting on offense is because there was a player who quit. So, or not quit. That quit's not the right word. Decided not to play this year as opposed to last year.
Yep.
So Bodie's out there, and then he scores 3 touchdowns in the Jamboree, scores on a 53-yard bomb, and gets a pick in the week 1 loss. So Bodie's definitely somebody to watch for as far as someone to make explosive plays as well. I expect to see.
Is he playing free safety?
No, he's playing corner.
Corner on defense.
Yeah, Cole Eckerson is mostly playing free safety. Okay. And then Caleb Ames also is someone who we watched make plays, actually earned himself an all-league spot last year after not even starting until about midway through the season. Mm-hmm. And he's a senior this year, so I expect to see big things from him as well. On the Aberdeen side, for me, it's all about what can Jeremy Sawyer and Trey Anderson do for you. You know, are you going to be creative enough in your play calling to get those guys in a little bit of space so that they have one guy to beat instead of 3 guys to beat? Mm-hmm. What are your impressions about what Aberdeen might be trying to do against Montesano next week?
I think that it's going to be very interesting to see the schemes that they decide to go with, because the other side of this game is that the offensive coordinator for Aberdeen is Brian Hollitz, the former defensive coordinator for many, many years for Montesano, and a big part of that coaching staff for Montesano, right? And so when I watched that offense, I think at one point I told Ian, I was like, man, this offense is very multiple, and I love all the things they're doing, and I like, it almost feels like Montesano. And I was like, wait a second, that makes sense. Because I had forgotten for a bit that, oh yeah, Brian Hollitz is now the offensive coordinator for this team. And I think that they have the talent that once they polish some things up a bit, because they struggled a little bit, you know, they had some problems with the turnovers, with penalties. When they polish things up a bit and really get into the flow of this, they have the 2 studs that you're looking for, right? I mean, we've seen it so many years with Montesano where they'll have 3 guys or 2 guys. Or sometimes, you know, there was the year where it was just Anthony Louthan who played like 3 guys. But, you know, where you see it and you're like, oh, when they get multiple, they are just dirty to try and stop, right? And so when you have Jeremy Sawyer and Trey Anderson, who basically split the touches, right? So what were the stats? Jeremy had 10 carries, but he also had 3 catches. And Trey had
12 carries for 130. Jeremy had 13 carries for 90, but also caught 3 passes for 58.
Yeah. And
they both scored 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. And that was one of the cool things that I saw about this offense is early on when they were having trouble getting the ball in Jeremy's hands with space, like he was getting a lot of grinded out yards on the ground, they would run a play action where it might not even have been, I think it was play action, but they would like clear out a side of the field receiver wise. And so all the DBs are running that way. And then Kale would just be like, oh, here's a nice little 5-yard pass to Jeremy. And he would turn around and have like 10 yards of open space. And then he could really show off his open space talent, right? And so that's how he had 3 catches for 58 yards, is because they were getting him the ball in creative ways for space. And then, you know, I mean, Trey's just a speed demon who has also added some bulk this year. I mean, I think he's only like, he might be a generous 5'8" and 175 pounds. So he's a big, strong kid and super fast, and was trucking people at the end of runs. So I mean, their skill positions are great. It's going to be interesting to see if they can mix in a wide receiver. We didn't really get to see too much of what the wide receivers could do, but I think it was Walsh and I want to say Watkins showed some promise. Showed some promise there. And Mason Sorensen is a big, strong, athletic tight end who I think can make an impact as well. It's going to, in my mind, they have the offensive line. They have the weapons. And Cale Goings is a very strong, tough, physical player that you love. He's a football player. He's the type of kid that you want to see on your football team. He reminds me a little bit of, do you remember Kenny Wakefield for Hoquiam?
Yeah.
He reminds me of that type of player, but where Kenny kind of got shifted out of playing quarterback because they realized that he did like 10 other things at least as good. They need Cale to be the quarterback. And he's a strong runner and a good runner. Now can he add in the throwing decision makings? Because I think he's improved a ton with his throwing, by the way. When he first started as, a sophomore, you were like, oh, I wonder if he can throw enough to actually play quarterback. But then at that point, Aberdeen didn't throw it all, so it wasn't really an issue. But if he can get his decision making throwing the football down, I think this is a team that could go do some amazing things this year. And he's definitely got the talent to do it, but this is a whole new offense that he's trying to learn. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they progress down the season.
So you don't have to make official pick right now. Are you going to pick Aberdeen?
Yeah, I am. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the coaching staffs, to see how Montesano coaches against a Brian Hollitz-led offense and how Aberdeen attacks a Montesano defense and offense that Hollitz knows inside and out. It's going to be really interesting to see some wrinkles that they throw in, like, hey, I know this defense does this, or I know this, because they know each other so well. So it's going to be really fascinating.
I may go watch this one. This one's going to be fun.
It is. It really is.
I'm not ready to lock in a pick yet.
I don't know the score, but I think it's going to be...
I'll pick.
I think it's going to be Aberdeen.
I'm going to pick Aberdeen, but I'm also going to pick them every time. So.
What about when they play Tumwater?
I'll pick them.
He just gave me a look.
Yeah, I did.
If you're listening on the podcast, you didn't get to see it, but Andrew gave me a look like, what? I'm going to pick him. What are you going to do about it?
I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's going to be very fun.
We got to name an athlete of the week.
I know who I'm leaning towards.
What if we did dual athletes of the week?
That's what I'm leaning towards.
Okay. Because I couldn't pick one between these two guys.
Yeah.
Do you want a drum roll?
Sure.
Athlete of the week.
Trey Anderson and Jeremy Sawyer.
There you go.
These two guys absolutely dominated the game. Like I said, Cale Goings played excellent as well. There was a bunch of standouts on defense for Aberdeen, but Trey and Jeremy were also some of those standouts on defense. They also played excellent defense. And so they combined for nearly 300 yards of offense just between the two of them. Jeremy, again, had,
90 rushing yards on 13 carries, 58 yards on 3 catches.
And Trey Anderson had 130 yards rushing on 12 carries.
Both scored 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty easy decision.
Yeah. Couldn't pick one.
And that was the
Gotta
tough
go with
decision.
both.
I was trying to pick one, and then we're like, why not Zoidberg? I mean, why not both?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So congratulations.
Yes.
Jeremy Sawyer, Trey Anderson, you are our Ole Penn Real Estate Athletes of the Week for your performance in the Myrtle Street rivalry game. We do give escalators for rivalry performances as well.
Do.
So when you show out in a rivalry game the way that you guys did, much more likely to win the award. So keep that in mind if you're choosing which week you're going to go off. Go off in a rivalry match.
I think they're just going to be going off every week.
Okay.
So
I would love
prepare
to
yourself.
see that. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and also, I wanted to bring this up because there wasn't too many highlights for Hoquiam. And by the way, before I bring this up though, Trey and Jeremy are two of my favorite kids to root for. I mean, even though they're Aberdeen guys, and
Me
I'm
too,
a
but
Hoquiam
not
guy,
on Friday.
But I really like those guys. But I thought it was cool that King 5 ended up going down to Hoquiam to cover this game because all the people, I'm assuming in Aberdeen and Hoquiam, were like hopped on Twitter when we shared it.
When we shared it, it
Yeah.
was a big community effort.
Exactly.
Lots of people shared it, but mostly us.
Yeah, so
I do think that even I feel like a lot of even not in Aberdeen and Hoquiam, like screw whatever
Puyallup.
Seattle. Screw Puyallup. Come cover a team down here.
Exactly. So Chris Egan, who's for King 5, posted on Facebook after the game, and he said, "Talk about classy. Hoquiam just lost to their rivals Aberdeen 40-0, and a senior from Hoquiam came to our truck and said, 'Thank you so much, King 5, for coming to the game. It's so awesome you were here. We can't thank you enough.'" And he says, "This is the stuff that keeps him going." And I just wanted to say, because Hoquiam didn't have too many highlights in the game, I'm proud to be a Hoquiam guy because of that.
Thank you to that senior.
Yeah, I don't know who that senior was, but very, very...
Do they mean like a high school senior or a senior citizen?
I'm assuming you meant high school senior.
Okay.
Senior citizen probably would have been a little bit different. Thank you for coming down to watch the football. All right. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up. What do we got next?
The last thing we have on our sheet is poll results.
Yes.
So we haven't done this for a few episodes, so I'm excited to bring it back. I actually posted some polls based on last week's show. Make sure you get onto our Twitter page at the Scrimmage and vote on these polls, because really important stuff happening here. These kind of polls are the kind of things that make the world a better place.
Because if enough of you don't vote, then Justin just gets to have his way.
Question number 1 on the polls. Did you know that pumpkins are in the gourd family?
I did.
I assumed.
90% of people said yes. Question number 2. Did you know that cucumbers are in the gourd family?
I did not.
We
I
learned
knew
that last week.
I've learned that over the last month or so.
Gotcha.
Because we're growing things in our garden.
So 71% of people said no, they did not know that.
Nice. Informative. The more you know. Listen to the Scrimmage.
The next poll. Should Daniel be given an award
Yes. For what?
for being the first podcaster to mention Sean Canfield in the last 10 years?
Possibly ever.
Well, Daniel, I'm happy to inform you. 57% of the audience said yes.
Yes!
You should be given an award.
The one time I've won one of these polls.
Well, they didn't have Haley Van Lith as an
I was going to
option.
say, take that, Haley Van Lith.
Let's see if you won this next one. This is based on something you said.
Uh-oh.
Has every decision Pete Carroll has made since drafting Russell Wilson been garbage? 62% of the audience said no.
Oh!
They did not agree with you. Next question. This was based on something I said repeatedly and again today.
Okay.
Do you miss Russ? 68% of the audience said no.
Oh, wow.
They do not miss Russ.
Wow, see...
Preseason, I'll be honest. Preseason, I haven't missed Russ. I do expect to miss Russ during this season.
That's a good point. That's an interesting nuance to it. I miss Russ, but also hate Russ at the same time.
Whoa. Hate's a strong word,
Sports
bro.
hate. Sports hate.
Like we hate Lyndon Christian.
Yeah. Oh.
Or is that real hate?
That's pushing it.
When Russ was here, any time that he wasn't actively playing on the field in a meaningful game, there was this constant war of like, but he's my quarterback. But he's my quarterback. And now, when he does the ridiculous things or says the ridiculous things or makes the silly sound bites, I can just enjoy it and be like, I totally accept and expect not to enjoy it during the season.
Got
But
three
so
more.
far,
Broncos country.
Let's ride. Three more poll questions.
Let's ride.
Here's the next one.
Seattle, we got a deal.
This is actually
Go Hawks.
based on something that Daniel's sister said in the chat.
Oh, okay. What do we
Does
got?
Daniel need
Ooh.
to watch Ted Lasso?
I've been told by multiple people since that episode that yes. Yes, I do.
67% of the audience said yes, you do need to watch Ted Lasso.
Okay. I'll figure out a way to pirate it, I guess.
Next question.
I might know a guy.
Where is... If you're not a Ted Lasso watcher, you won't get this.
Okay.
Where is Roy Kent? Here, there, or every bleeping where? 71% of the audience said Roy Kent is every bleeping where.
Does that mean that they have seen Ted Lasso?
Probably.
Okay.
Or it's just the most fun of the three
guessed,
answers.
right?
Last one. This is a big one. Who is most likely to be right with their prediction of Seahawks wins this season.
Oh.
Daniel with 4, Justin with 6, Andrew with 7.
Ooh, I
This
price
was-
righted Justin.
This
not
is
on purpose.
insanely close.
Ooh.
The person who lost got 29%, and the person who won got 36.
Wow.
This is tight.
36% said Andrew is most likely to be right.
Oh, wow. Optimistics here.
Or just
And
realistic.
also a very pessimistic audience because 1% behind was Daniel at 4.
Yes.
So 36% Andrew, 35% Daniel, which left 29% for me.
that actually does make sense though, because you and I are at both ends.
Yep.
Justin's stuck in the middle. From a Price is Right sort of.
Stuck in the middle with you.
No, by yourself.
You never want it
unfortunately.
coming out both ends.
Good point.
That might have pushed our PG-13 rating.
The Mariners game has been rescheduled for 5:10.
What?
Yep.
Today?
That is in 13 minutes. The Mariners game will restart. So
They really...
as we wrap this up here, everyone can tune into the Mariners game.
And then the Mariners have to fly back to Seattle and play a game at 3:40 tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow? Oh, jeez.
That's got to be pushed back, right?
Can you?
I assume you can. They pushed
I
this
doubt
game
it.
back.
But that was a game that was already started, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Like,
didn't
that was
push
because
this
of
game
weather.
back. They
It just started it.
Yeah,
later
they
than
didn't
normal.
push it back. They just scheduled when they're going to start it back up again.
Oh yeah.
I assume. That's crazy. That tells me that they really want to keep that off day in September.
Ryan Divish tweeted that the game is scheduled to start at 8:10 p.m. Eastern. Rain is expected to start again at 8:14 p.m. Eastern. So they're just going to restart it and play in the rain, I guess. But they only need to get like one inning in.
Yeah, I mean, on the Mariners side, you want to see them start it. If you're a Cleveland Guardians fan, you're like, no, we're losing.
They very may well restart to a stadium with nothing but Mariners fans left.
I like it.
There's all 12 of them.
I think that'll do it for our show today.
I was going to ask that.
I think it will.
Is that it?
Let's put a pin in the balloon of this episode.
Let's nip it in the butt.
So for my co-host, Daniel, you never want it coming out both ends, Hargrove.
And my co-host,
Couldn't think of a nickname.
Justin's stuck in the middle with you, Domashevitz.
there you go.
And
Thank
our
you,
trusty
Andrew.
producer, Andrew, picking Aberdeen every week. Gross.
Hard stare.
You've been listening to The Scrimmage.
Check us out. Socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Do it now!
Yeah. TikTok. But Justin
blew
never
the
followed up on
speakers.
his bet.
Oh yeah, you're
Posted
right.
one video.
What the heck?
We
You
need
have not got 1,000 likes, sir. How
I'm
many
waiting
likes are
to
you up
see
to?
how many likes it gets.
How many?